So, good morning, everyone. I'm Rachel Bevan, Director of Statistics Division here at ESCAP in Bangkok. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's Asia-Pacific Stats Café on the ESCAP Committee on Statistics Fit for the Future. And I'm going to pass you over to our chair of the Bureau of the Committee on Statistics, Mr. Bhattava. He's also of Mongolia National Statistics Office for some opening remarks. So over to you, Mr. Bhattava. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Good morning, colleagues. Welcome to the ESCAP Stats Café. My name is Bhattava Batmukh. I'm the chairman of the National Statistics Office of Mongolia, and I'm chair of the Bureau of the ESCAP Committee on Statistics. As you know, the committee at its 8th session in 2022 decided that Bureau shall, with the support of the Secretariat, conduct a review of the groups and communities of practice, supporting the committee's work and propose recommendations to that end for consideration by the committee to streamline, consolidate, and improve these groups and communities to ensure recommendations to that end. These groups and communities to the review was conducted, and its findings, as well as draft recommendations on the proposed new structure for groups and communities, were contained in the consultation paper that has been sent to all members for feedback. The paper was also shared in the invitation of this Stat Café series. So I hope everyone had a chance to look at it. So today's session, we have first opportunity to share our feedback and ask questions related to a proposed new structure. So today we will begin by the presentation on the draft proposal. The presentation will be made by Ms. Rachel Bevan, and then we will start the panel discussion and followed by the Q&A session. So I would like to invite Rachel Bevan, Director of the Statistics Division of the ESCAP, to present on the draft proposal. Rachel, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Bhattava, and great to see all of you online. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you also to the team for sharing the slides. So hopefully you can see those all and can hear me clearly. So as Mr. Batmukh's already said, the purpose of today's session is really to talk to you more about the consultation that we're holding around reviewing the committee structures. So let me go on to the next slide, if that's okay. So we, as we've already set out at the last Committee on Statistics, which was held in August 2022, we agreed that we would do a consultation on the review of the committee structure. So this is the process that we're following. We've the Bureau have started the process, and we agreed with them the terms of reference for the work. And we have been discussing the key findings and emerging recommendations as we've been going through this review, which included an in-person discussion back in September 2023, and then further discussions as we've gone through this process. So the review is very much being led by the Bureau, supported by the Secretariat, and it was really initiated for two purposes. First of all, to identify lessons learned on the operation, composition, substantive focus, and the results of the existing groups of the committee. But also the second purpose was to propose modalities and criteria for establishing any future groups and determine their focus and modality of operation based on those lessons learned. So the review itself has involved desk research, polls, surveys. We've had discussions with each of the individual groups, as well as discussions with Secretariat staff. And as I say, that has led us to develop the consultation paper, which was circulated a few weeks ago and which we'll be discussing today. So just in terms of the process itself, this is the first round of consultations. We will do another round in July. So based on the feedback today and from any other feedback we receive by the end of the month, we will then revise the consultation paper and send it out again for further comments during July. And we'll do another Stats Cafe in July. And then we will finalise the paper. So based on all of that feedback, we aim to finalise the paper sometime in September, for then that will then feed into a larger paper which discusses all of the decisions made from the last Committee on Statistics, and that will be discussed at the 9th session of the Committee on Statistics, which will be held in Bangkok the 11th to 13th of December. So I hope that's in everyone's diaries. So if we go on to the next slide, please. So in terms of the actual structure at the moment, we obviously have, as you know, the Committee on Statistics. We have our Bureau of the Committee on Statistics, which, as you know, is chaired by Mr. Batmuk from Mongolia, and there are 5 other countries also on the Bureau. And then we have 5 existing groups and communities which support that work of the committee. So we have the 2 steering groups, one on regional programme for the improvement of economic statistics, and one on population social statistics. We also have a network for the coordination of statistical training in Asia and the Pacific, although that actually that group stopped working last year because it was superseded by a global group working on the same topic. We also have we have a technical working group on disaster-related statistics in Asia and Pacific, and the Asia-Pacific Data Integration Community Practice. So that's the existing structure. Just also to note, there is actually another steering group. There is a steering group on civil registration and vital statistics, but that reports separately. So it doesn't report to the ESCAP Committee on Statistics. It reports directly to the ESCAP Commission. And that's why that's not included in this review. So if we go on to the next slide, please. I mean, I think you're all familiar with the fact that we have an agreed vision that by 2030, national statistical systems are enabled and empowered to lead the development of and to deliver innovative, trusted and timely products and services for urgently needed and the evolving statistical requirements of Agenda 2030. And that's supported by 2 documents. We have our collective vision and framework for action and the declaration on navigating policy with data to leave no one behind. So associated with that, we have 5 areas of the collective vision, which you can see here. I won't go through all of those, but just to say we did a quick mapping of the groups and communities we have. And as you can see, they really cut across all of those 5 collective vision areas. So that kind of makes it fairly complicated, and hence one of the reasons why we're looking at the structure to make sure that we have the right structure going forward. So if we go on to the next slide, please. So we've had, as I said, all these different consultations. We've talked to all the different groups, and what did we find? And let me just go through this because the key findings have really helped to then shape the recommendations. So what was very clear in the discussions that we've had is that the formal groups do work very well, but they work particularly well when there are specific financial resources associated with them. So that's the case, for example, when we set up the steering group on economic statistics, that was actually associated with a programme where there was actually some funding at the time, which enabled us then to actually have some discrete project activities associated with that. But then the challenge comes then when the funding stops and when a particular project stops, then it can be quite challenging for that formal group to continue because it's unclear that what that formal group actually does when there isn't specific money associated with it. And of course, without money, it's very difficult to really push the work forward in a substantive way. So you know, it really shows that first finding is that the formal groups do work well, but the challenges come when there are not additional financial resources associated with that. What we also found is that informal groups, for example, the data integration, community of practice, things like stats cafes, then it was really been very effective because they're able to respond very quickly to that rapidly changing context, unlike formal groups. So we can do things much more simply. We can set up quick meetings, and we can kind of consult with them much more easily than through the formal groups. But having that ability to be able to respond quickly has been particularly important where the context has been changing. So we particularly found that during COVID, that the informal groups were very helpful in being able to respond to that rapidly changing situation. Also, we found that the online webinars have actually been a very good mechanism to share information and also share experiences, and have helped us to respond quickly to emerging issues. So particularly things like this Stats Cafe, that has actually been a very good format and has been very helpful. We also found that communities of practice are working very well, where they're open and inclusive. But some of the other things we've found as well is that there's really is an increasing overlap between the different groups. And that really reflects the fact that the world in which we live is getting more complicated. And there's that real growth in terms of what we call in multi-domain topics. So things like data governance, environment statistics, big data, they don't fit neatly into one area like economic statistics or social statistics. You know, they really cut across all of these different areas. And so that makes it very difficult then to work out if we're doing a particular activity, is it part of the economic statistics steering group or the social population social statistics steering group, or does it fall under disaster related statistics? So that's been a real challenge, that kind of increasing overlap and dealing with these more complex issues which really cut across the traditional areas of statistics. I think what we also found in the findings was that it's kind of better for countries to engage more with global groups, and that we don't want to repeat and kind of duplicate global groups with having to have regional groups on every topic. And that we've all got very limited kind of time available to us. So with that, it would be better for Asia-Pacific countries to engage in global groups where they do exist, to make sure that those global groups really do have that strong Asia-Pacific voice, and rather than us feeling we have to duplicate everything at the regional level. And I think that's particularly the case on that network for where we previously had a network for statistical training institutes. That was set up at a time where there wasn't a global group, but since then a global group has actually been set up for the global network for statistical training institutes, and it had such a very similar mandate to the regional group, and because of that we've stopped operating the regional one and instead have chosen for countries to engage more with that global group. So that's just an example of that. I think the other key finding, which is really shaping the recommendations as well, is that we here in the Secretariat, as you know, have limited resources, so we can only support a small number of groups. And we're very aware, whilst we would love to be able to have, you know, all kinds of groups operating, we don't really want to set up too many because we don't have the time then to support them all. And we want to make sure that each group that is set up does have sufficient Secretariat support to make sure that it does function well. So what has that led us towards? If I go to the next slide, and then I will talk a little bit about this new structure. So what we're recommending is that we move away from having these kind of discrete groups and communities and then instead of that, we have a kind of integrated, agile structure. So what we're recommending is that we actually would stop all of the existing groups. And then we will replace them with this new structure. So we would create one new Asia-Pacific Data and Statistics online forum. So that would kind of be open and inclusive. It would be an opportunity for statisticians across the region to engage on a wide variety of different topics. They'll be able to ask questions, seek support, post information, tell people about work which they're doing. We would also use that online forum then to identify topics and speakers for stats cafes, and topics and speakers perhaps as well for dash teams, which I'll say more about in just 1 minute. So we would continue the Asia-Pacific Stats Cafes, and they would be the one way in which we would really seek to, they would be the kind of one online kind of webinars that we will have. They would replace all of the other kind of webinar series we have. So we currently do various webinars, for example, under the data integration community of practice. Sometimes we do others as well as Stats Cafes. So we would replace all of them with with stats cafes, but we will be clear that when we advertise stats cafes, we will be clear about some will be a more strategic level and then say at a higher kind of, say heads of NSOs, whereas others might be more technical and would have a specific audience. So we would just make sure that that's really clearly shown in the flyers and the information that we send out in advance. And we, of course, would advertise those on the new online forum as well as through our normal channels. And then a new thing would be that we would set up what we're calling, this is a new thing, what we're calling dash teams. And dash teams, like kind of sprint groups, these would be small groups, they'd be time-bound, task-focused teams set up for a very specific purpose. So they would really have one objective, one activity kind of associated with them. So for example, say we were developing a new set of regional guidelines, then we might be like the set that we set up through the data integration community of practice. So we would set up a dash team with that particular focus. We would write the specific terms of reference for that group, clearly showing what it is the group's trying to achieve, and then how long it will be set up for. We would anticipate most will be kind of 6 to 12 months, but a maximum time frame of 2 years. And each of the dash teams would report to the Bureau. So rather than reporting to the Committee on Statistics, it would be more flexible to report through to the Bureau. So the Bureau would agree the terms of reference, and as the work is carried out, then they would report back to the Bureau. And then the Bureau in turn would report on all of those to the Committee on Statistics every 2 years. So when we would set up a dash team, like I say, we would agree the terms of reference. We'll write round in the normal way to all committee members to ask if they want to nominate someone from their office to join the group. And we'd also post information on the online forum asking for any volunteers as well to join those groups. So if I go to the next slide, I'll just summarise what the recommendations are. So sorry, I know I'm going through things quickly, but that's to make sure that we have enough time to hear from panel members and also from all of you in terms of questions and hopefully we'll give you some answers to them. So the recommendations are we discontinue all 5 of the existing groups and communities of practice, and we replace them with this one new Asia-Pacific Data and Statistics online forum covering all aspects of official statistics. So within there, of course, we could have different topics that people might be wanting to engage with. We would have dash teams, which I say would be very task focused, time bound, and they would really support the implementation of decisions made by the Committee on Statistics. And as I said already, they would also report to the Bureau and of course through to the Committee on Statistics, and will continue the Asia-Pacific Stats Cafes to share experiences. So if I go to the next slide, so just to say where we are in terms of the next steps. So as I say, we've had early consultations. This is the first draft of the paper. So we're seeking your feedback now, and we will incorporate that in a revised paper, which we will then do another Stats Cafe on, another round of feedback for the final paper in September. So hopefully that is all clear. So what we want to do now is that we thought it would be really good to start with kind of panel discussion on the recommendations that we put forward. And so we've asked 3 people to be on the panel. So now I've done that presentation, I can switch to my moderating role. And the same with Bhaktava as well, is now switching to be a panel member. So we've got 3 panel members who are going to we've asked each of them to kind of share their reflections on the proposed new structure and really to ask them to highlight any potential benefits and any challenges which might still need to be addressed. So we have 3 people on the panel. First of all, we have Bhaktava Batmuk, who you know as chairperson of Mongolia NSO and also Bureau Chair. We have meant to have we've got our second panel member I can see, so I'll go to the second, Maud Mohd Yazid Kasim, who's Senior Director, just to say we did a quick mapping, Management Office in Department of Statistics Malaysia, and he's co-chair of the steering group for the regional programme for the improvement of economic statistics in Asia-Pacific. And we are meant to have our third panel member, Sonam Tenzin, who is the representing a chair of the regional steering group on population and social statistics, but I don't think he's joined us yet, but we will carry on anyway. So if I can first of all go to you, Bhaktava, to share your reflections. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for the presentation. Okay, so no, I think the participants had the chance to look at the draft recommendations proposed by the Secretariat on the review of the groups and communities of practice supporting the committee's work and proposed recommendations. So I think one of the benefits of the proposed new structure would be maybe these dash teams in online forums would be helpful to evolving needs of the committee or the situation, because we could see from the key findings that formal groups, though when they were working quite efficiently while there was resources available, once the resource is stopped, then the findings of these formal groups kind of stopped or not renewed since. So that's why I guess the proposal is to implement the decisions of the committee's work. Maybe we should be creating the online forum with this creation of the dash teams, which would be created by the Bureau on the evolving situations of different times. And we could see from the draft recommendation that these dash teams would be set up for duration of 3 to 12 months with the maximum time frame of 2 years to achieve a specific outputs. I think it will make the workings of the committee and the bureau more flexible in the future. But one of the consideration or challenge that we could face would be because those dash teams or these online forums would be informal, meaning that those dash teams will be only reporting orally to the bureau. So my concern is that it could, a lot of the work of the secretariat, because we can see from the proposed structure that secretariat will be would be supporting those dash teams all the time. So my question or my consideration would be how much burden it could create for the secretariat, because we know the secretariat for secretariat we don't have a big team to support these dash teams. So do you think the workings of these dash teams would be how much burden it would be creating on additional burden it would be creating on the secretariat? So that's one concern for me. Otherwise, I think
group to continue because it's unclear.
Proposed structure is quite, I think, quite fit for the purpose. And another thing is that my understanding from the draft recommendation is that it says the bureau would be creating a dash teams on based on the demand of the time, and however the internal workings of the dash team is also really important, because since it's online based dash teams will be working virtually, so in terms of organizations, in terms of practicality. So I think support from the secretariat is also really important because let's say maybe we have like 6 countries in one dash team, and there should be one who will be leading the dash team, chairing the dash team, and reporting back to the bureau. So therefore, since it's all informal, the keeping up the work of the dash teams by the secretariat is also, I think, really important. So on that point, maybe a bit of clarification would be great. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll come back to answering some questions, but if I can move over now to Yazid Kasim from Malaysia, if you could perhaps share your reflections and perhaps something on the benefits and challenges. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Stats cafes, they hear you very well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first of all, thank you very much for comprehensive presentation from and also the opening remark from Mr. Badava. And also thank you for ESCAP for inviting me for this session. And here I'm pleased to give some thought on the current process of reshaping and streamlining the modality of the steering groups and various formal and informal communities in ESCAP. And my views is basically on my experience and perspective of the co-chair of the steering group for the regional program for the improvement of economic statistics or RPS, and also as well as a practitioner in this official statistics field. As a background, the steering group of RPS is established to improve soundness of economic analysis and related decision making through increased availability and effective use of timely, reliable, and comparable economic statistics. And since its inception, I think the SG of REPS is successfully organized various programs. We must thank ESCAP division, SIAP, development partners, steering group members, and countries for their continuous support. I would like to say here that among the flagship program that we successfully conducted were the Asia and the Pacific Economic Statistics Week. And also we managed to produce a report on statistical capacity screening in the Asia and the Pacific. This shows that this steering group is really important, and perhaps we also managed to produce RPS work plan for the period of 2021 and 2023. And bear in mind that when the COVID-19 pandemic hurt us in 2020 and 2021, this thing has changed many things, including our capacity of country in producing statistics. And in a tremendous demand, more complex data required, and also the changes of prioritization. So has changed the way we work in this statistical community. I believe the changes in prioritization of resources allocation is purely to support nations' effort to expedite its recovery. And regarding to our topic today, firstly, I would like to mention that we need to realize that preparing SDG indicators for 2030 agenda is highly required data integration from various statistical fields, also data processes in the national statistical system. And I believe many countries are also trying their best to comply with international statistical standards. So in the term of economic statistics, I believe that our data, our statistics is really required or look after by other indicators as well. So this will involve cross field of statistics, and for my opinion, this really requires coordination, collaboration, and integration with limited resources that country has. From the SDG point of view, we do embrace changes as the way we work after the pandemic. And I believe the changes in the way we work are not exception and perhaps unavoidable. For statistical community and practitioner, perhaps we are forced to change and live with innovation. So in this case, the proposed structure, perhaps advocating the modernization and technological driven, as we believe it is also part of the official SIG processes that across the field. And thirdly, my point will be about how we can arrange our work according to the present priority. I also believe that in what kind of in many type of setup or form of integration, we need to consider the generation and the outcome from that exercise. And also we need to keep in mind that any effort decision must be seen as important to the fiscal needs of the member state. And fiscal priority may differ from member state. However, we need to ensure that our resolution is acceptable and in accordance with the present priority. I also had an imagination that the formation of groups perhaps will be a combination of formal group and will encompasses the people that are tasked with official mandate to lead or to be a member. And it is also important for them to function and be relevant. And at the same time, the members or the officer appointed must be an active person, and to ensure that the deliverables is on time. And beyond the integration between the community or between the dash team and so forth, I think we also need to encourage or promote cooperation between countries. And from this perspective, I think the cooperation might go beyond individual member state needs, and this arrangement could be recognized as another way countries or national system could support each other. And a few challenges that cross into my mind with the proposed structure is about the volatility in members of the task force or the team whatsoever that may be formed later. And this is because of sometimes the changes is unavailable because of promotion and job rotation. So I'm in the opinion that to agree with Mr. Badavat that we need to consider the output and the outcome is measurable, and perhaps in a short or medium term, like 1 or 2 years. So I think I would like to stop there, and perhaps maybe later part of the discussion we can elaborate more on the proposal. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much for those reflections. That's really useful. Let me go on. I think our third panel member is also online. So if you'd like to turn on your camera. So we were going to go to Sonam Tenzin, who's the Director General of National Statistics Bureau of Bhutan. And he is also representing the chair of the regional steering group on population and social statistics. So if you are online, I'm afraid I can't see your name online, but if you are there, if you could switch on your camera. Okay, we have somebody representing him, Tashi. So if you could switch on your camera and perhaps share some of your reflections on the proposed new structure, highlighting the potential benefits and any challenges we still need to address. Thank you. I can see you there, so that's fantastic. If I could just pass it over to you, Tashi Dorji from Bhutan. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Good morning, and also I'm very sorry for joining a bit late. I thought the session starts by half an hour late Bhutan's time, but I think I was wrong. So very sorry, and my apologies for joining a bit late. Very warm good morning from Bhutan. I'm representing my Director General, Mr. Sonam Tenzin, who is engaged elsewhere because of the prior engagement he has committed earlier. So I was asked to attend this meet on his behalf. I would like to also mention here that Mr. Sonam Tenzin is new to National Statistics Bureau. He just took over this January. So before him, we had Mr. Chimitsiring, who was the head of the agency, National Statistics Bureau, as director, but he was transferred to another agency. And in between, before we had a new director general, we had an officiating director who was Mr. Pup Sangye. So he was, until Mr. Sonam Tenzin joined the office, Mr. Pup Sangye was representing him, and he was represented both as the committee member as well as the chair of this regional steering group on population and social statistics. I may not have so much knowledge on this discussion, but I have had the opportunity to read through the document that was shared, a 7-page document in which there was some review being done
on every topic.
Current composition of the different teams, which is there are about 5 different groups. And now I think the change that is being is to
of time available to us
with a new set of structure for the discussion and all these things. So I have gone through the document, and then it was found that I think there's the structure that is being proposed is, I think, going to work. As far as I concern, I think it is
engage in global groups where
we are going to have this dash team in place of the current different groups that we have. So the dash teams is going to work on the different areas that is going to be assigned by the Committee of Statistics based in Bangkok or the Secretariat. The only problem that I would see is, as highlighted by the previous speaker, maybe we present the case that when the people are being transferred from one agency to another, so that is where the gap comes in when the informations are not properly transferred to the person who is taking over the role. So I think that might pose a little bit of challenge, but otherwise having dash team and then I think the Stat Cafe that the ESCAP has created, I think that is doing really well, where you invite different experts from NSOs, either through appointment or through call. So I think that is well thought about, and I think we are very much sure that that might work. But what I would suggest is we might go with the current proposed structure, but we might also have to think about falling back to the previous structure if the proposed structure does not work. I also understand that the current structure is not able to function properly because of the resource constraints that is mentioned in the document. So that's why, like, we are proposing with a new structure. So what I feel is looking at the structure and the descriptions that is being provided in the document, I think we are very much hopeful that this will work. But the composition of the dash teams, which is going to be similar to the previous formation, where you are going to invite experts of the different subject matters to different dash teams, and this dash team is going to be there for about 3 to 12 months. But again, since everything is happening virtually, sometimes I think that poses a serious challenge because meeting in person and meeting online, I think it's a little bit different. So the commitment is very much different, because when the meetings or discussions happen in person, I think that is more productive, more fruitful, and I think we can easily arrive at the decision point whereby we agree. But when it is being done virtually, sometimes I think most of us here on the panel, I think, would agree that commitment, I think, is sometimes not as good as that used to be in person meeting. So I think we might have to consider that as well. While we may do most of the things online, but I think sometimes virtual, I mean, like meeting in person can be more effective and more useful than doing everything online. So I think we can have the combination of virtual as well as in-person meetings to take our goals or targets to next level, or to achieve whatever we are aspiring to achieve. So I think from this side, from Bhutan, I think we agree with the proposed structure, with the caveat that we will have to, if things doesn't work, maybe like we'll have to fall back to the previous arrangement. So I think at this point, I will maybe along the course of discussion, if things comes up, so we might again want to discuss again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panels for those reflections. Let me just quickly summarize it in terms of what we've been hearing before I then pass to Tirupong, who will be managing the Q&A session. So from all of you, I think we heard broad support for the proposals and the recommendation, and seeing the benefits in terms of giving us that more flexibility, also allowing us to then be able to provide more to make sure that each group is set through these new fora. But we also heard the challenge in terms of making sure that we actually, do deliver on these DASH teams, and that DASH teams are very focused on actually delivering a specific outcome. And we also heard about the challenge, of course, in the for the Secretariat to support multiple DASH teams, which we will obviously need to kind of come back to. And I think in terms of the work for the Secretariat, I think we will have to kind of start small, I think, with the number of DASH teams and see how it goes, and then look at, creating additional ones after we see whether or not they're successful and judge how much work is required. I think as well for that, we will be hoping that we can get more member states and countries involved, so that will also make sure that we have wider support for the specific DASH teams, and perhaps rely slightly less on the support of the Secretariat. But we can certainly start with a small number of DASH teams to make sure that we've got enough resources to manage them, and then look at how we increase those over time. I think actually we also saw in the chat, and we had some feedback before about this issue of all virtual versus kind of actually in person, and we can certainly change the terms of reference to include in person meetings as well. However, I will say that we don't have any funding for any of the DASH teams, so if anything is done in person, that would need to be when we've got the resources to be able to do that. But we could certainly make sure that in the terms of reference that is a possibility, that that they can be held virtually or in person. With that, I think if it's okay, I'm going to hand over to Tirupong, who's going to manage the next kind of session with any Q&A. Thanks. That allows me to then answer the question. So over to you, Tirupong. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel, and thanks all the panelists. I think we have around 45 minutes from now. So we'll open up for any questions or reflections of the new proposed structure of any participants would like to raise. That a few messages already in the chat. I'm going to summarize them. There is actually one question registered before Stats Café from Tite from ILO. The question was, how can the ESCAP Committee on Statistics better promote peer-to-peer support on statistical capacity in Asia-Pacific? Maybe Rachel, you might want to address this first while I'm collecting all the questions in the chat, and people might want to raise their hand directly.
Thank you, Tirapong, and thanks to Tite for that question on this. In terms of peer-to-peer support, I think we would see the new specific data and statistics online forum as being that place where we could actually match people together. So people be able to ask questions and then anybody kind of answer questions or offer support. So we would use that as a way to actually link up different organizations or different individuals working on specific topics. So I think that's very much how we would see the online forum working. Thank you. Back to you, Tirapong.
Thanks. And that was similar question about allowing the Dash team to be both online and offline. I think you have addressed that. Is really subject to funding availability, but that could be made clear in the TOI, I believe. That also let's say a concern raised in the chat. If we are going try to build the strength of the flexibility, we might lose something else. So I'm not going to read them out, but just to summarize that maybe it might risk reducing accountability and transparency. What topics Dash team would be worked on? Who get to decide that? Is it going to be by consensus? And there might be some issues that might not be off the top of the priorities, but very important. Question one, especially one
about work which they're doing
of women and children, it might not be picked up, but it's very crucial. But who would help us ensuring these topics would come into light, so that kind of the gist of the concerns. While we also see that some other regional commissions might want to go towards having more specific groups or specific tasks and activity that ESCAP has done in the past. We are moving towards having one integrated view of the world that has some benefits and also challenges. So Rachel, you want to address this? It's a long one, but I'm sure you can address them one at a time.
Thanks, Tirapong. Yeah, it's a long question, but let me try and answer it, and happy to have a separate discussion as well, Gustavo, on that. I mean, in terms of the, kind of addressing some of those perhaps topics that might not be prioritized. I mean, I think that what I would say is we're not changing our collective vision. So, we still have our kind of collective vision on what we've said is important, which has been agreed by member states. We also have the declaration to leave no one behind, again, that kind of sets out the key priorities. So it's still very much for the Committee on Statistics to set out the priorities, and all of these existing groups, the kind of the Dash teams, the forum would report back to that Committee on Statistics every 2 years. So it would really be, for the committee to kind of decide what are the topics, what are the things of importance. So it's not for us as Secretariat, definitely not, to kind of make that decision. But, the Dash teams are really responding to that kind of to the demands and to the decisions that are made by the Committee on Statistics. So I would really kind of see it's that committee that makes the decisions, that sets the priorities. But just to say, we don't have the resources to cover every possible, area. And also we don't repeat, and duplicate the work of global groups. So we're aware, very much that it's the UN Statistical Commission that all of us engage with, and that there are many formal groups through that in terms of, groups on, say, for example, the work going on to review the system of national accounts, all of those formal structures still exist, and we very much are kind of supporting those. So this is very much kind of, in addition to this, what are we doing at the regional level to make sure that we actually are responding to those kind of regional priorities, or that we are kind of learning from what we can across the data integration community of practice that are perhaps slightly different than what's going on at the global level. So that's kind of what I would say on that. In terms of learning from what's going on, we've discussed this with all of the others as well as stats at what they do in the other regional commissions. And what I would say as well is that we want to try and make this flexible, and that's partly why we want these groups to report through to the Bureau, because then that means that actually we've got a bit more flexibility to change them and to see how it's working, and to really kind of learn as we go along. So that's, you know, what we would be seeking to do. So we will need your input as we go through these, as we start to kind of, you know, set up a new dash team to see whether or not it's working. In terms of the priorities as well, we will again, you know, very much be, you know, seeking direction from the Bureau, but from the wider committee as well in terms of those priorities. Hopefully that's clear. I don't think I've answered. Tite kind of went back and said specifically his question was around formal support from NSO to NSO. We don't currently have a formal process for kind of doing that, but we of course completely encourage it. So we can perhaps discuss that a bit more at another time to see if there's enough that we're doing on that. So thank you for that. That's an important area. And please, Chirapong, let me know if I've missed anything else or anybody else on that.
No, you are doing well so far, Rachel. I'm sure there might be some participants who would like to raise their hand and ask questions or share his or her own reflections. So feel free to do so. We will still have 39 minutes. We can also finish early if everything is clear. Yazid?
Yeah. To add to the point that I think the complexity of the setup is basically depending on the number of dash team that going to be established. And then I think this is really need to streamline with the collective vision. And also I believe that committee of the C also have their work plan that in order. So it is important also to consider that the capacity of secretariat I think is diminishing. And we also need to prioritize the sector work, coordination work by ESCAP, so that at least we can get something beneficial to the community. So that is my another point that we need to consider when we try to form a new structure of this community. Thank you.
Thanks, Yazid. So, Rachel, would you like to say something on that note? I think it's quite clear, but thanks a lot for the recommendation. I don't see any hands or any other question posted in the chat. I would, well, I'll count to 3 then, if there's no more questions. So going one. Let me make sure I don't miss anything. No, right. Good twice, and I think there's no more question or reflection at this point. But may I remind everyone in the call that we have sent out, as Mr. Patava said, the consultation paper to everyone for feedback. And feel free to drop in the form that we also sent in conjunction with the paper. This is again, as our bureau chair said, this is the first opportunity that we have in sharing very openly our feeling about the new structure. As everyone said, the change might be inevitable, but how do we make it effective? And that really feedback would be invaluable from everyone coming in. And we will also organize another Stats Cafe similar to this once we gather the first set of feedback, and then we'll open up for the second opportunity. We'll have things formally discussed in our committee statistics later in this year. And hopefully we would incorporate all the feedback that we receive by then. So as my colleague always like to say. So we'll give your precious time back to you for 36 minutes. So enjoy your rest of your day, and until next time, take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.